So let's come to immigration. It's a very interesting one. I am a believer in a moderately healthy-sized Australia, I have to say. And I also recognise that we just have to...
But as Paul Keating once said, John, the best immigrants are your own children.
Well, I recognise, though, and there's a bunch of issues in this as well, that Australians are not having kids anymore.
That's right, yeah.
So we are an immigrant nation. It's quite astonishing. I think the immigrant population of America is around 15%.
Correct.
Britain is around 15%.
We're 30%.
We're around 30%, over 30 actually. And then there's another 20%, you might fall into this category yourself, where one parent at least was not born in Australia. Now, let me put a twist on this first, and then we'll come to some of the economic issues around it. I was talking to a great Australian yesterday who gave up being a motor mechanic to go and train people in Asia in English as a second language. And he came to me because he said, we need a program. I keep running into immigrants in Australia who say, I want to understand Australia. I want to be an Australian. I want to know what makes a place tick, why it's a better place than the one I came from. But he said it's nearly impossible for them now to gain access to any reliable information. And he said the schools are even worse. He said their kids go to school where they're basically told, they're taught Aboriginal history, but they're not told anything about how we became a democracy, how we became the country that we are today. We need to do something to help them actually understand what it is so that they can support it. But it raises this question as, you know, do you lose a certain sort of understanding of what it is to be Australian? You and I believe in the nation state, I think, as a logical basis for a coherent, free, prosperous society built on an engaged and vibrant citizenry. We're losing all of that. We're losing our commitment to it.
If you don't...
How do we make sure that we manage an immigration program that doesn't make it even harder to develop a sense of unity?
Well, the interesting thing is that when you actually speak to migrants, they love being in Australia, and as far as they can, they just want to fit in. Now, their leaders aren't necessarily of that disposition, because a lot of so-called community leaders basically want to turn migrant groups, particularly recent migrant groups, into victims. But essentially, every migrant who comes to this country is voting with his or her feet confidence in Australia. And so it should reassure us about the fundamental worth of our society. Yet instead, as you've just touched upon, John, our kids are constantly indoctrinated about Invasion Day. Our university students are constantly indoctrinated about the evils of the patriarchy and our environmental despoliation and so on. Sure, some things we've got wrong, no doubt about that. But fundamentally, what happened subsequent to the 26th of January 1788 was a very good thing. And look, John, I mean, I think we should cherish the fact that we were settled by Britain. We shouldn't be embarrassed about the fact that we were settled by Britain. By virtue of being settled by Britain, the country which has probably had more influence on the modern world than any other, we speak the world's common language. We share in the heritage, the mother of parliaments, the rule of law, the scientific revolution, the emancipation of minorities. All of these things began and flourished first in Britain. That's part of our heritage, and we should be proud of it. And regardless of the background of our migrants, regardless of what country they come from, their religion, their ethnicity, they should be encouraged to participate fully in that heritage, which has become their own heritage, because they need to join Team Australia rather than simply live in Hotel Australia.